Cheryl?
And maybe we will come to the same conclusion we have, but then I will have felt that I've done my duty.
Cheryl, in the meantime, the village does not have a fence ordinance.
We've had a fence ordinance that we haven't, that we've let go. We've
Yeah,
had a
but
fence ordinance.
it's a few lines in the building department, it doesn't do half of what this does. And our moratorium on the enforcement of said ordinance expires in 2 weeks.
It's served the
Well,
village
you know
well
what?
for 50 years.
I don't think that we
Send
would
it.
be in this position had we enforced our ordinance in the first place and talked about it then. So we've let it go for a decade now. I think we can let it go for a little more so that we get accurate information.
See, I think we've got pretty accurate
Well,
information.
then call, then ask them.
Well,
what should
fine,
be
then,
called.
then call for a vote.
Just a minute, we're still talking here.
And do we allow input from the public before we call the vote?
We're not having a vote so fast.
No, it doesn't look that way.
Somebody want a question?
You know,
I would just say that we don't have, I don't
I
know
would
what,
assume that there are
We
people.
didn't decide A or B first.
No, we
I would
didn't
assume
say the
there are
question
people on
is
the
called.
board, and I don't know for sure, and I don't want to single out Sherry,
Sweetheart.
but I would assume that there are people on the board that no matter how many deer the village has, whether it's 199 or 550, they would never, ever, ever vote for culling deer just for moral reasons. I think your point would be one of those people. Sherry probably would be one of those.
I probably would.
So,
I can't go home if you don't hear.
right. So the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, we could have a
You
village,
can't move into my house.
Remember that.
we could have a village of just deer fence after deer fence after deer fence after deer fence. The entire village with just deer fences with corridors, and still there would be a number of people on the board who would probably never vote for culling those deer. Even though at that point in time, we would have a compelling reason to do something. And I don't know where that number is or where that number should be, but it just suggests to me that certain members of the board may have just a moral objection to it as opposed to what they feel is really appropriate for the best interest of the village.
Okay,
Right.
now here's, okay, now,
That's just
since
my-
I've
that's
been
just my-
pointed out
my
here,
view.
wait a minute, since I've been pointed out, and I take that, and I accept the fact that morally I don't think that killing anything, I won't even kill a wasp, but I'm allergic to their stings,
My wife,
okay?
same thing.
I don't think that killing is the answer, I don't think that remaking nature to our own pleasure is the answer either. So, no, I would certainly not support culling deer, and I just couldn't do that. However, and it's a huge however, Michael. First off, there's documentation that shows that a lot of the reason for the destruction of habitat has nothing to do with the deer. Has nothing to do with the deer. It's, I mean, you know, we can take the deer package and say, oh my God, they're eating machines, they destroy this, we
We're going
destroy
round and
that.
round again.
Okay.
We're not going in a circle again.
Okay, but
But there's a lot that says it is too.
look, there's no question that there's deer browse. There's no question, I agree with that. They're welcome on my property. They can-
I'll send them over.
I'll
to you.
send them over to me, I mean, you know, give them my address, tell them that
You'll be-
browsing is good. And very frankly, I counted 17 new oak trees coming up on my property, browser, no browse fence or no fence. And they're getting nice and big, 17.
congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Wonderful.
I thought it was wonderful too.
Oh, sorry.
But it's a broader issue, Michael.
I
It is
agree, it's a
broader
very,
issue.
very difficult, I was on the
I'm
board the
waiting for
first time they were
some
called.
suggestions.
Can I add something to your discussion, since I don't know where you classify me? However, I've been on this board long
I
enough.
think you were on the board when we voted up to cull deer at one point, Bill.
Absolutely.
I mean, you and I were on the board together at that.
And I signed the kill order.
Right, so I haven't classified you.
Let me,
Drop me to I will.
well, let me just give you my thought on the thing.
Please.
That being that the wildlife people, the same wildlife people I might add, sat right in there and declared that the deer herd in Riverwoods is the same deer herd that exists in Ryerson. And, well, I'm sorry, they weren't here to have you object at the time. They did say that that was the same herd. you can talk about the deer only go a half mile or 18 feet from their range, et cetera. The man said that the deer herd was one and the same. I don't know that the deer understand that difference when they cross that little border here between Riverwoods and Ryerson. And a lot of Riverwoods borders on Ryerson. Lincolnshire was put into the same category. Your comment is, well, they culled deer only in the north of Lincolnshire. Where else in Lincolnshire would you cull deer? Otherwise, you're in somebody's backyard. The north of Lincolnshire is the only place they have to cull deer. So they have to cull the deer in North Lincolnshire. It's not because that's where the deer are, that's where they can kill them without blowing out somebody's windows. Ryerson makes a count, we participated in a count. The state declared the number of deer that can be
The biological
Handled.
capacity.
415 to 20 per square mile. We have 4, you put the math to it. Ryerson calls deer, Lincolnshire calls deer, and actually, I don't know how many deer cross over Lake Cook Road, but you've got another forest preserve over here. If they are culling deer and Lincolnshire is culling deer, and the deer counts are the same and the herd is the same, I could never understand why Riverwoods has to get it, their 2 cents in and also cull deer. Because in many
Accept your
cases,
point, Bill, you don't
a
understand.
duplicate, that's fine, I am happy not understanding. Based on your math and the way you've played with these numbers, nobody would understand.
Bill, if
And I did not interrupt you when you were talking, and I'd appreciate the same courtesy, which is difficult, I understand.
You're correct, Bill, you're correct.
It is not a moral issue, it's as much a practical issue, and I continue to maintain all the cry and hue about deer. You move next door to a forest preserve on 3 sides, and there are deer crossing signs every foot of your street, and you're surprised when you find deer in your backyard. I have difficulty with that logic.
Okay, but
Somebody didn't do their homework.
Bill, do you remember my comment to that question, or to that comment that you made last time? I said to you that I moved into this village 24 years ago, and I knew there were deer, but I knew it was also magnificent, especially in the spring. It is not that way anymore, okay? And I have just as much right to have that restored as the person who moved here because he liked the deer,
Put up a deer fence.
okay? But that's my point. Okay, I didn't have to put up a deer fence 23 years ago when I moved here, okay? So why do I now? Why are my rights any different than somebody else's rights? When you used to drive down Port Wine, it was a sea of white. It was gorgeous in the springtime. You've been here, you know it. You know, I saw it with my eyes. That's why I moved here. I thought it was magnificent. It's not like that anymore. That may be because of problems with understory and problems with the canopy and problems, but I gotta believe it also has some problems with the deer. Because when I look at Ringland Road and I drove down there to see how pretty it is in those areas that are deer fenced, it's back to what it looked like when I used to drive down Port Wine. And that's because it's no longer being browsed by the deer. So there are a lot of people who moved to this village not only because there were deer, but because there was beauty. And apparently at that time there were less deer. I know when I moved here there were a lot less deer. I never would get 7, 10 deer in my backyard at one time. You would have an occasional sighting of a deer, very occasional. Not like now. You drive down Hoffman Lane, sometimes you have 7 deer walking across, standing in the middle of the road. You know, it wasn't like that 25